Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 324 of the Assorted Calibers podcast. The second night podcast is a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd, she of the entire known universe, and maybe a little bit beyond, Aaron Paulette. How you doing, Aaron?
So if you say that you're going to give me free shipping on a purchase of X dollars or more, and I go through all the rigmarole of adding more product in order to hit that, and then when I go to checkout, you don't give me that free shipping, I will abandon the cart and never come back. So screw you. Not you, Weer'd, but...
No, that's fully understandable. Yeah, actually, my grocery store, you can actually, when you go into the store, you can scan your shopper card at this little kiosk, and it'll give you a little hand scanner. You can also download an app and scan groceries on the phone, but it uses the camera, and it's a lot slower. But hand scan the app, and it works really, really good for the, buy one, get one free. Oh, that actually seems like a really, really good deal. And then you buy the item, and if it doesn't give you one free, you could be like, oh, well, in that case, it's not a good deal anymore. I don't want any of it. I am definitely firmly on that of the, you convinced me with this, and now you gave me a lie, and I don't like lies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I even got an email saying, hey, your cart's still full of things. And I replied with, and you didn't give me my free shipping that you promised. You give me my free shipping, I'll buy it. And that was Black Friday, and I haven't heard back from them, and I don't think I will.
I don't think you will either.
Nope.
I mean, also, chances are it was probably a robot that sent you the email. And
probably.
And your response probably went into the circular file.
Probably. But I also contacted their Facebook page, and I can tell by the little icon someone saw it.
I appreciate your thoroughness, Aaron. Aaron Paulette, Black Friday mercenary.
Look, man, I'm German-Irish, okay? I get mad at the drop of a hat, and then I cherish that grudge. So, yeah. The bad news is now I'm having to find some other gift to get you guys, because it's like, no, this is a really good price for the thing, and I've got to get some for the blue-collar prepping people, and for the ACP people, and for my gaming group, and wow, that's really getting expensive. Can I get this price down any lower? So they raised my hopes and dashed them quite expertly.
The best.
But that's me. Yes, that's me. How are you doing, Weer'd?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. Yet another Monday.
Okay. Yeah. Main topic then?
Main topic then. Yeah, no, it's like it's Monday. I did laundry. I did laundry and I put together the show notes. I have nothing to report except for there's Ryan Machad was not available to do Handgun Radio this week, and so David Miles and actually Oddball got home just in time to join us and all of that. And I will just say that, hey, man, if you don't show up for your own podcast, I get to throw you under the bus as much as you want.
So how was your Thanksgiving, Weer'd?
Well, thank you, Aaron. Yeah, it was. I had a good Thanksgiving. Did you?
It's all right. The food was fine, but I mean, Mom and I are homebodies, and so when it's just us and the dog, it's just okay. We probably should put the dinner out onto the nice table so that we can have a proper family meal rather than just eating off TV trays, watching the TV. But then, what do we talk about? Because, I mean, I talk to Mom all the time. It's not like mealtime is the only time I have to talk to her. And honestly, I'm putting food in my mouth. And so it's just like, okay, now what? And so we kind of ate in awkward silence and then put the food away. Yeah, we used to, back when we had 2 dogs and 3 people living in this house, get like big turkey, like, 16, 18, sometimes 20 pounds. And it would just last forever. And I'd be sick of it, like just well into December. And then we'd have it again for Christmas. And so come January, I didn't want to look at a turkey at all. But now that it's just the two of us, and, his mom's in her mid-80s, so she doesn't have much of an appetite. And so she got something small, like about 12 pounds, maybe 14. And we finished off the turkey over the weekend. And it was like, I want a bit more turkey.
Well, the fun thing is if you go to the grocery store, they may have them marked down.
Yeah. But yeah, the turkey salad was fantastic as always. And we've gotten the outdoor decorations mostly done. Every year we've always got some that break or choose not to work, and it's like, oh, is it a bulb problem? Is it a connectivity problem? So, I've been working on those, but I think we've got them ironed out, except for we've got one of those motorized deer that has the head that moves and the head lights up, but the body doesn't. Something happened electrically, and all of the lights on the body are just blown. Just, black carbon on the inside. It's whatever caused the short or whatever to make them blue, they blew. And it's just like, I could theoretically replace all the bulbs, but for all I know, after I do all that, I plug it in, and it could just as easily blow again. There's all that time wasted. But
it'll light up very, very brightly, very quickly.
Yeah, but we were like at Walmart recently looking for replacement lights, because we always do every year, and it's like we couldn't see any deer. So, Christmas decorations seem to come in and out of fashion, and those seem to have gone out of fashion. So at night, we've basically got a floating deer head next to one of the trees.
I saw someone who took one of those and hung it up in the tree, and then had a pile of red lights dripping out of it, like it was they were hanging it.
Sure, that's disturbing.
I mean, when you shoot a deer, that's what you do. You hang it, let it drip for a little while.
Because when I think of a holiday centered around the birth of the Prince of Peace, I absolutely think of butchering a deer. Absolutely. Why not? Weird. Have you started Christmas decorating yet?
I have not. And you know what? That doesn't. We'll put up a tree at some point in the near future. There isn't a lot of outside stuff that goes on. So if any people ever ask, oh, where are your Christmas decorations? I tell people we're Jewish.
I believe that's cultural appropriation, Weer'd.
No, it's messing with people. That's my culture.
But yeah, I'm a Halloween person. Mom is a Christmas person.
We still have our Shoggoth pumpkin sitting on the front steps.
Okay, I didn't know you have that, and I require pictures.
Oh, I'll snap a picture of it tomorrow. But yeah, no,
damn right,
it's not quite as Shoggothy, but my daughter decided when we bought her pumpkin, and I was getting ready to have her carve it, and she's like, you know what? I don't want to carve it. I just want to decorate it. And one of the things she decorated it with is about 20 googly eyes. It's not quite Shoggothy. I mean, it only has the one mouth, but...
Okay, I understand what you're saying now. I've always heard it pronounced Shoggoth.
Okay.
So when you said Shoggoth, I literally thought you meant SHOW space GOTH, like a goth in showbiz.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I don't know what a Shoggoth is, but I need to see it.
Yes.
But I still want to see a Shoggoth pumpkin. Yeah. Okay.
I'm still going to say Shoggoth until I see it.
Of course you
Actually,
are.
no, never mind. There's whole YouTube videos on how to pronounce Cthulhu. And everyone's going, no, it's Cthulhu, or no, it's Cthulhu, or no, you're doing it wrong. And I say Cthulhu.
Yeah, well, you at least have the excuse of not being fluent in your own language, so,
Shots fired. But I'm also learning Hindi. My daughter's taking Spanish in school, and there's a bunch of kids that have Duolingo and are using it to help them get ahead on it and all that. And so, she asked my wife, can I have this app? And my wife looked at it and was like, you know what? This seems appropriate. And she goes, you know what? It actually seems kind of interesting for me too. So she ended up buying the family plan. And so my daughter's learning Spanish. My wife is learning Japanese. She took a semester of it in college, but so she's really more brushing up on it. And then I said, wait a second, can I join too? So I was like, yeah. And they're like, what language do you want to go? And I thought about it for a little bit, and I said, I think I may take Hindi. And my wife looked at me and goes, why? And I said, so I can hear what the scammers are saying to me. And to be fair, I do live in North Shore, Massachusetts. There are a lot of Indian immigrants. Not that it necessarily means anything, because essentially English is the national language of India. So if you see an Indian immigrant, chances are they speak English. And then if they speak another language, it may not be Hindi. So either way, but I'm actually having fun. And I got to say, I highly recommend Duolingo, because essentially they turned learning a language into a video game, and you feel like you're scamming the system, and you're just kind of going, no, I'm just learning how to beat the levels fast, and not.
So they weaponized the dopamine receptors to get you to learn a language.
110%. Yes. And on top of that, like, you feel like you're cheating because it's activating completely different parts of your brain. It's the type of part of your brain that like memorizes the Super Mario Brothers levels, so that you know when to jump and when to run and all of that, instead of the more rote memorization that I always learned when I was getting taught a language in school. And but it's like working like I can't necessarily read Hindi, but if you tell me to write a sentence in Hindi and give me a whole bunch of words to choose from in that, I'm gonna mostly put them in the right order. So there's that. It's fun. It's really fun. All right, I think enough of that. Shall we? Let's go on the main topic. First up, I actually wanted to give a shout out to Sean Sarantino, host emeritus. He reached out to me after listening to last week's show and mentioned that he said, I got one better. He has a little wallet thing that attaches to his driver's side visor, so he can pull the visor down, and the registration and proof of insurance and any pertinent information is all right there, so that he's not digging around in a rearview mirror. He's just grabbing something from a visor, which if a police officer comes up faster than you think and sees you fumbling with your car visor, they're not going to be like, what are they doing? They're going to be like, they're fumbling with a car visor, and oh, look, there's there's paperwork attached to it. And he also said, and this is actually, I hadn't thought about it this way. You teased me about the fact that I said that, I've never actually used this line, but it's the one that I practice in my head so I don't fumble it like a fool when it actually counts, is that I possess a license to carry and I'm exercising that license. And you laughed like, I'm having the license to planks. And he said, you know what? He says that actually seems good, because it's a weird enough turn of a phrase that it's actually going to get them thinking about it entirely new instead of on a beaten pathway, such as the I have a gun. Mm-hmm. You don't want to say I have a gun, because that's what a bad person says when they're making a threat. And so even if you say, just so you know, officer, I have a gun, they may not hear that as a polite reminder or a suggestion, but instead it is as a direct threat. And I am exercising a permit. What in the blue hell is this person talking about? Oh, okay, I get it. And he's got his hands on 10 and 2 and all that. So okay, I see what we're doing here. So it was an interesting way to think about it. So thanks for reaching out, Sean. In other podcasting news, Aaron, we got some good news today.
Oh, right. Yeah. So this is going to come out sounding really critical because I just can't be as enthusiastic as Weer'd can. In fact, I don't know why he threw to me. But ACP has been nominated for a Gundie Award, and that's an honor. I went to the Gundies last year because I was nominated and I didn't win, and I knew I wasn't going to win, but I had fun going there and meeting people and shooting other people's guns using other people's ammo, which is always nice, and made some good trade connections and came back with some swag. But yeah, ACP is going up against a lot of podcasts, most notably Unsubscribe.
Yeah, that's the big dog.
The only way Unsubscribe doesn't win is if they don't care enough to tell their fan base to vote. and even then, they might still win. But it sounds so trite, but it's true. It is an honor to be nominated. And so I don't plan to go again because I got a lot going on. Mom's going to have a surgery in January. Do you plan to go again?
I've been thinking about it. I don't know. So
okay.
So
well, if you go, you get a +1, and so maybe take one of the other boys like Oddball or David.
Yeah, no, that certainly has occurred to me. So I will be thinking about it, and or heck, if any two of them want to go more than I do, the more than happy to let them represent the podcast with shenanigans, and maybe you can see the future ATF director. He says with his fingers crossed and his eyes really hard pressed closed, please, please, please. I want a machine gun amnesty. That would be fun. I want to live in that world. So yeah. So if you are so interested, by all means, go and register at the Gundies so you can vote every day. And I will say that as someone who has registered and voted in the Gundies Awards, they don't bother you that much. It's not one of those like ones where, oh, I regret signing up. So this is so it's one of those, like, if you want to have a little fun doing that, go right ahead. We appreciate it, and it is an honor to be nominated.
I also seem to recall, I'm gonna look it up, but I think Beth Alcazar, who was on the Gunblog Variety Cast, has been nominated for like Instructor of the Year or something like that.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm trying to navigate the website to try and find it. See, there's a whole bunch of them, because she might be under Most Influential Female of the Year, or she might be under another thing, and I'm looking, and I don't want to take a whole lot of time. She's not under there. Firearms Instructor of the Year, I think that's what she had, because she was nominated last year as well, and unfortunately she didn't win. I don't see her there. So I'm not going to... This won't be the podcast of you listening to me go through all the categories, but I'm pretty sure I recall her saying she was nominated this year, so, go looking and find her, and that would be cool.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, on to some other news. So this one I just want to touch on very, very briefly, because again, ACP is, while we are a political podcast, we are a nonpartisan political podcast. We only stand for the Second Amendment. And I honestly was not going to put this one here until I was actually listening to someone covering the news of this, and I realized, oh yeah, I'd forgotten about that, and that's kind of a bummer. And the bummer is that Joe Biden has pardoned his son Hunter. I will not comment any further about whether I think that that's a good thing or a bad thing, because honestly, I really don't care. It's just a thing that people are making political hay of, and it was something that, like, if anybody did not expect that to happen, despite Joe Biden saying he wasn't going to do it, you just weren't paying attention. But the key factor I wanted to say here was that one of the things that Hunter has been pardoned on, one is a tax evasion issue. The other one is a firearms charge, and the fact that he lied on a 4473 about his drug problem. and bought a handgun, and so he was charged with that and convicted of that, and now he's.
So what's noteworthy about that? I remember us talking about it, and his lawyers were basically challenging the case under this violated his right to keep and bear arms. And I don't remember your position, but my position was, I don't like him, but I want him to win just for the precedent.
And that was it. What it was the lawyers definitely presented the idea that they cited NYSERPA and said that this is a violation of the Second Amendment, and the judge said, I am not hearing Second Amendment issues on this. I just want to rule whether or not he lied on the 4473. And so they presented instead saying that, Hunter Biden has been in and out of rehab his entire life. And so he is Schrodinger's addict. Sometimes he is addicted to drugs and other times he is not addicted to drugs. And whether or not he was addicted to drugs at the time of this, it was later proved because he gave very specific dates in his book on having issues with drugs and buying drugs and things like that. So the court ruled that indeed he had lied on the 4473 and was addicted to drugs at the time of him buying the gun. But the whole premise was that he would be allowed to present the Second Amendment argument on appeal. And so at least it was discussed. I don't know at what point Hunter and his legal team knew that Joe was going to pardon him. But it was definitely something that they were gearing up to do. And I was absolutely rooting for it. Again, not because I like Hunter Biden. I really strongly dislike him. All you got to do is look at the laptop files and to know the man is to dislike him. But the fact of the matter is that there could be a Biden versus United States as a Second Amendment victory case that would either remove the drug questions on the 4473 or maybe even nuke the 4473 entirely. I don't know, depending on how the court rules, would be a very, very hilarious thing on one of the most vocally anti-gun presidents in the history of the country. His family name is used as one of the champions of the Second Amendment, right next to Dick Heller and Otis McDonald and the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association.
Mm-hmm.
It would be some delicious irony, but that is not going to happen. We'll have to find some other case to challenge that, because the argument has been made that the in the early days of the Second Amendment and pretty much any time up to what was it, 1968, yes, there you could be disarmed if you were drunk or under the influence, but the idea is that your firearms would be returned to you unless you had done something else that was particularly bad, because there's nothing wrong with being someone who gets drunk or has drugs. It's just not safe for you to do it at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really don't understand why. Well, I sort of do, because, we had a war on drugs. It all goes back to prohibition, really. But, there's nothing in the 4473 that indicates, are you a chronic drunkard? And that would be at least as dangerous. So, this is a soapbox I'm not climbing on. It's just punish people when they break the law, not because they might break the law.
I'll go right on record and note that Maine has in their concealed carry application says, are you addicted to any drugs? And I'm trying to remember if it's in the actual form or if it's in the statute, but says that addicted to drugs means anything that you would suffer from withdrawal if you stopped using them. And
okay.
Number one, I'm a caffeine drinker, and even though the withdrawal from caffeine is not that bad, it's 16 hours, I think, or something like that. And then you're free and clear of any monkey on your back from the stuff. But there is addictive qualities to caffeine, and I was a smoker when I got my first Maine permit, so I was definitely I was a reluctant smoker too, so I was really struggling to try to get rid of my my addiction to nicotine at the time that I got the permit. But it's one of those like, yeah, no, they are specifically talking about illegal drugs, but it's not specified in the law. So yeah, the laws around that are super weird and unconstitutional, I would argue.
Well, unfortunately, that'll have to wait for another day.
Yep. All right, now on to we got two stories from anti-gun countries. Well, having their proving what we've been saying all along, which is banning guns does not make you safer.
Right. And so, like last week, I talked about the New York City stabbing, and I compared that to Great Britain, just because you have laws that prohibit firearms and make it very difficult to have firearms. First of all, it doesn't prevent firearm crime, but even if that somehow magically did, it will not prohibit other types of violent crime. Now, you think I'm leading up to Great Britain, but I'm not. This is actually about China. And so China has very recently had a series of some spree stabbings, and sometimes in tandem with vehicles, and a lot of times they're going after children. And this is something that I remember, I'm not sure how many years ago, but in China, people attacking children with knives is unfortunately not a new thing. And so, let's see here. November 19, vehicle hit students at primary school gate. It doesn't say how many were, several adults were injured, and it struck students, but there's that. November 16th, stabbing kills 8 at a vocational school. November 11th, driver kills 35 at sports complex. So, a man was upset over his divorce and rammed his car into a crowd of people. And I recall we had something similar to that within about the past 10 years. Some guy in California was really upset about his girlfriend dumping him, and so he committed vehicular manslaughter by driving into a crowd. October 28th, 5 injured in knife attack near primary school. September 30th, knife attack kills 3 at supermarket. So, again, laws will not prevent violent crimes, because if you're gonna kill people, which is, I don't know if it's the most illegal thing, but it's a very, very illegal thing, you're not going to be stopped by, regulatory laws saying you can't have this item. You will find a way.
And if you have near totalitarian, weapon laws where, we're, banning carry of guns and ownership of guns, banning carrying of knives, pocket knives, maybe even banning clubs and impact weapons and other things like that. Well, you're getting into the in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, where hey, guess what? A dude with a $5 machete in a place where not only are the people completely disarmed, but also in a society where you just don't even really talk about self-defense. So the idea of thinking about fighting back in any way, shape, or form, just people haven't gone over it on their head, haven't really considered the fact of, what do I do if somebody tries to do something murderous around me? That's really the nice thing about the Run, Hide, Fight program that was pushed for workplace violence in recent years, where it's literally saying, yeah, if there's violence, run away from it. Totally admirable. Hide if you can't run away from it. Also admirable. If you're confronted by the violence and you can't do that, fight back. And one of the things that you see in most training videos and things like that for Run, Hide, Fight is taking a fire extinguisher off a wall. Every institution has fire extinguishers in fairly regular intervals, and that makes a heck of an impact weapon. it would be better if you could produce a firearm, but unfortunately, in many of the places that do this training, you as an employee, you're prohibited from carrying. So they can't suggest that. But I will note that most places don't seem to care if you have a pocket knife, especially if it's something that you might use for work, because I frequently used my pocket knife to open packages and various things around the various jobs that I've done in places. And, it also might have other uses. But yeah, this is, our hearts go out to all of the victims of this, but I wanted to post this as just a sign that gun control does not make you safe. And also the term gun death that you will often see in anti-gun propaganda is a completely made up term because, we talked about, we just literally talked about dozens of people losing their lives and even more people. It's probably over 100. If I wanted to tally them all up, they don't give exact numbers for some of them, but like over 100 people injured over the course of several months. And hey, guess what? That none of them were hurt by a gun. Is that any better? Is that a consolation prize? No, it doesn't make any difference. And last week we did the audio fisc on the anniversary of the Canadian handgun ban, and this article was written by a member of Parliament, Melissa Lantsman, who I will note is also the first openly lesbian member of Parliament in Canada. I believe is one of her distinctions. But she mentions that property and violent crime rates are now higher in Canada than in the United States. This is my shocked face.
The violent crime rate in Canada increased by 44%, very close to half, between 2014 and 2022. So,
and they're saying the homicide rate is still lower than the United States, but it's increasing, so they're gaining on us.
It's increased by over half, 53.5.
Yep.
So these are very big numbers.
And interestingly enough, these massive increases are happening in the face of, arguably illegal, because there was certainly some talk that Justin Trudeau's handgun freeze was maybe not legal per Canada's laws. Obviously, it's still in effect. Nobody's knocked it out, but there was certainly some people that were protesting, saying that this was an overstep of parliamentary powers. They're doing lots and lots of bans, and it's not working. It is not working at all, and so that's why we stand for the Second Amendment. It's one of those like no-brainers. I'm a big anti-war on drugs sort of guy. I think that everything should just be legalized, because I think everybody or at least almost everybody who wants drugs has them. So why don't we just, instead of making drugs in back alleys or smuggling them in from countries that may not be the greatest countries in the world, why don't we let people grow and make our drugs domestically and let grown adults make choices with their lives as they can? But that's a scary statement. That would definitely cause some deaths and cause a lot of turmoil and strife. I've known people who've struggled with addiction, and it's not great. It's not pretty at all, and I'm not trying to glorify that at all. I just don't like the war on drugs and what it does to people. But what I say all that to say that there are trade-offs, and that's where I stand on that side. With the Second Amendment thing, there's no trade-offs. There's no trade-offs. You get the guns that you want, and you can go to the range and have fun and all that, and you live in a safer society. And speaking about having fun at the range, we often talk about gun range safety and how a properly run gun range is a very safe place for the shooters. But there is a serious danger for every gun range trip. You often leave wanting to buy a new gun.
Welcome to Independent Thoughts with yours truly, Xander Opal. Oddball ended up costing me $400 from the last blog shoot. He let me try his Bullpup shotgun at the range, and I quite enjoyed it. So as soon as I got back home, I got hold of my friendly local gun store and ordered one. I am the proud owner of an American Tactical Bulldog Bullpup shotgun, which fires 3-inch 12-gauge shells. It has a convenient adjustable cheek rest, and the sights it comes with are adequate, though I am sorely tempted to get a red dot with minor magnification. It also has a couple Picatinny rails, one on top, one bottom. The 5-round magazine slots into a well behind the grip. It has an AR-style action, where a handle is pulled back behind the top rail to charge it, and a toggle on the left side for a bolt release. The mag release is on the right-hand side, and there is a standard crossbolt safety in front of and above the trigger. There is no magazine safety, and I have actually used it as a single shot by slipping a shell in the ejection port and dropping the bolt. The stock has a foam rubber butt pad which helps with the recoil on top of the polymer frame's ability for the same. It has a replaceable choke, presumably standard, that threads into the end of the barrel. As I bought it new, I got the full out-of-the-box experience. The sights are not mounted ahead of time, but good enough for birdshot at 30 feet to hit a gallon water jug once I saw I needed to put the ring just above it. Also included were 3 chokes, a choke wrench, and a handy little case to keep them in. It also shipped with a yellow plastic flag in the receiver, which I've been making good use of. The manual is rather on the thin side. I would have liked some more information on disassembly and shotgun chokes. Fortunately, I have computers and a cell phone and the internet, so I made sure to not end up eating a choke downrange when I ran slugs through the gun. Weather and work kept me from actually putting rounds to the gun for a couple weeks, then a couple weeks more for testing a variety of loads. The user experience is excellent. I've run over a dozen 7.5 birdshot shells through it, plus 5 each of number 4 shot and slugs. I hope I'm using the right terms, but experienced folks will probably know what I mean. The birdshot is very easy on me, though the heavier loads have much more recoil, with the slugs being, shall we say, stout. With nearly 50 rounds fired since purchase, I've not had any feed or cycling problems. At the suggestion of my fellow ACP contributors, I held off on the review until I fed the gun a variety of loads to ensure the gas system adjusts as needed. The only drawback I've noticed is the magazine must be vigorously inserted to seat it properly. It was rather puzzling to squeeze the trigger and only hear a click, then discover that the magazine wasn't fully in when I drew the bolt back. This may become a non-issue over time as the plastic well gets some wear on it. The manual of arms is something I'm still learning, figuring out what's the smoothest way to operate the firearm as far as working the bolt, dropping the magazine, and so forth. It is certainly more complex than the break-action classic shotgun that was my very first firearms experience decades ago. The size of a Bullpup is extremely convenient. The compact size makes for easy transport, as well as deploying it in close quarters. This is definitely one I want for a home defense long arm. I also plan to have it available when doing field work in the spring and summer, as the local woodchucks are getting out of hand. The biggest drawback is that I'll probably end up asking David for advice on cleaning the dust and grit out of the action, since even when they have closed cabs with air conditioning, tractors aren't exactly the cleanest. I look forward to getting some more water jugs set up in the sand pit I use for a range and chasing them around with birdshot, especially once I get a drum magazine. I also anticipate having a bit of fun with people when I offer to show them my shotgun, and they see something that is modern and vaguely AR-like rather than classic break action with wooden furniture.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up. See this? This is my Boomstick! It's a 12-gauge double-barreled Remington. S-Smart's top of the line. That's right. Shop smart. Shop S-Smart. You got that?
Have fun, be safe. I hope I gave you something to think about.
Oh, great. Now Xander's doing David's shtick.
I mean, you gotta miss my nephew has, I think, the exact same shotgun as this, and I got a chance to shoot it when I was up in Vermont last, and it is a hoot. But I've got a couple of notes that I took when editing this this segment because Xander leaves me a horrible mess to edit, and he enjoys it with glee. But first up, I will note that they make very specific red dots for shotguns. They've got like a bigger dot or like a circle to replicate a shotgun pattern. So it's a little bit better. And then also they tend to harden the electronics a little bit more because shotguns have a lot more recoil than rifles and pistols. Another one is he mentions that dropping a shell into the chamber as a like I don't know if he's going to be hurt as much as I was when I first learned this, because I always thought, the most efficient way to load up a gun is for carry is you lock the slide back, you drop a round in the chamber, you close the slide. If it's a 1911, you put the safety on, then you put a full magazine in, and away you go. And instead, the proper way to do it is to put a magazine into the gun and then rack the round into the chamber, and then either top off the magazine or insert a fresh magazine into the gun to have it fully loaded. And the reason for that is if you drop a round directly into the chamber and then drop the action, you're slamming the extractor claw into the back of the round, and it's causing it to flex in the opposite direction, and that can put extra strain on the claw, and eventually it'll snap the claw off. And you don't want a broken extractor because then the rounds don't come out of your gun. So just a little safety advice. It's not something. It's like doing the Mickey Spillane of flicking the cylinder of your revolver closed. Like everyone who's ever owned a revolver has done it, and you can do it once or twice. Just don't make a habit of it. It's not good for the gun. Same thing with that. If you really needed to drop a round directly to the chamber and then close the action over it, you can do it, and it's not the end of the world. You're not going to break the extractor on the first or the 30th time, but maybe after that, it eventually may, or it may just cause it to break earlier. So not a great idea. And he also mentioned the magazine not seating right. Might be, this is common for everything, not just shotguns, but anything magazine fed. Some guns, just because of the tolerances in things and the stacking of tolerances, you can't seat a fully loaded magazine under a closed bolt. So it could be that you should open the bolt and lock it back first, or don't load the magazine all the way up to the top with a shell, because it may not the spring may be too tight, but it also will break in eventually. So that may eventually go. And my last tip, and my most favorite tip to tell people, and people who are down in my armory will notice this and always go, what the hell's that all about? I have a box of tampons sitting on my cleaning bench, and that is because it is the best tool on earth for cleaning shotguns. Just lube them up with your favorite cleaning solvent and just stuff them, fluff them up a little bit to make them as fat as possible and stuff them down the bore. Also, if you have an AK pattern rifle, a tampon will fit beautifully down the gas tube.
I'm not touching that.
Fair enough. So shall we move on?
So Connie has some special needs kids at home, and because of that, she chooses to homeschool. But there are other reasons to homeschool. And Weer'd wanted Connie to talk about her experiences.
I am pleased to welcome back to the Assorted Calibers podcast, Connie Elliot. And you were talking in a previous segment about how your kids have needs that need mom, and you're essentially homeschooling them.
Yes.
And you know what? Why don't you tell us kind of a brief overview of that? You don't necessarily need to get into the specifics of what your kids get for homeschooling, but really more of kind of a primer on homeschooling, what it entails, and if anybody's interested in it, how can they pursue it for more information on how they might do it if they think that their kids need to be homeschooled.
The wonderful and terrifying thing about homeschooling is that the experience is what you, the parent, working with your kids, make it into. In our case, our son was brain injured, and that brain injury confounded the ability to find out that he had some developmental delays that made being in a classroom environment, in fact, made being in a school building impossible for him. So for him, a lot of his childhood was occupied by figuring out how to get him a day without pain.
Mm-hmm.
And in place of schooling, we did a lot of therapy and drew out interesting things in front of him until he would take things up and start asking us questions. There are lots of places where for more neurotypical kids, and even not, there are co-ops of parents working together. So they meet anywhere from 1 to 3 times a week, and each parent takes up a different subject, and they run through it with the kids. There's a co-op I know of inside the Beltway that spends a day a week on field trips to the Smithsonian or the National Zoo. And the National Zoo and the Arboretum and others actually have homeschool series that they'll do. The zookeepers will come out and give a lecture about something and show you with the animals in their habitats or the trees in their environment. There are other families that do what's called world schooling, and they travel from country to country and stay long enough to learn the culture and the language and the history and go on adventures with their kids. We talk about battlefields. We'll drive through a battlefield and talk about different elements with the kids. So it can be as structured or unstructured as you want. There are tons of curricula you can buy or even trade with parents. There are giant curricula swap meets everywhere a couple of times a year. And you can, or even inside churches. I know that there is a big Muslim homeschooling community, and there are different varieties of Christian homeschooling communities. There's a co-op run through a non-denominational church in Northern Virginia. They converted a giant beer distributing warehouse into a church with facilities like a gym. So you have active PE for the kids for several hours a day, a couple times a week. Homeschooling is what you make of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So now down to more of the nuts and bolts. As a father of a child who's in public schools, obviously the public schools make it very, very clear to you on how to excuse absences and things like that, because truancy is a very real issue. What's the side of that? I mean, obviously, so if I don't send my kid to the public school for which he's enrolled, eventually there's going to be, the state's going to descend upon me. What does one need to do as a homeschooler to placate the state that a proper education is being administered?
Different states have different requirements. Some of the requirements are very loose. I mean, in some ways, scarily loose. But in Virginia, I have to put my kids up either for a standardized test every year or an interview with a qualified person to my the superintendent of my school board to show that the kids are being educated and are making progress. And I choose the alternate assessment route each year because my son especially can't test. He needs like double time and a scribe and frequent breaks and, right? Why set your kid up for failure? But, at the same time, he reads at grade level. He has a broad knowledge of history. It's not as structured as it is with other kids. He's conversant in a lot of ideas. And the areas where he had a lot of trouble were handwriting and math. And so we're going back now and we're filling in the gaps. And then doing like large sustained projects. He couldn't focus enough to do like the kind of year-long research projects that you might expect out of a junior or a senior in high school. So, okay, we can turn back around and do them now. And the good part about homeschooling is that you can do these things at your pace and as your kids are ready for them. The other amazing thing about homeschooling now, especially at the beginning of the AI revolution, is that there are all these tools available. So, and there are all these online schools available. So you have a kid with special needs and you don't know how to help them get through something, and you can't necessarily pay for the therapy, or you want them to learn how to apply these cognitive skills in class. Go talk to the Aerosmith School, get your kid tested, and you can run through exercises with them where they teach the fundamental cognitive skills you need in order to get through school. Your kid is really able to learn math. Go to the Art of Problem Solving. They start with their Beast Academy program, which is like a gamified approach to arithmetic and pre-algebra, and then use their program, and they train kids for math Olympiads. Or go to Synthesis Tutor, which was the AI tutor developed for SpaceX, the SpaceX Employees School, where they would send their kids. And there are all kinds of services where you can rent a tutor by the hour and meet remotely. The cost on these is coming down because the internet makes it so much easier to reach out to more and more kids. So the tutors are able to offer economies of scale and focus on doing the things you need for your kids. Your kids need a bit more of a group environment, but you want to stay homeschooling, look at OutSchool. For a couple of years, my son has been with a group. The dungeon master of the group uses Dungeons and Dragons as a way of teaching cooperative and group problem solving to kids who don't get a chance to do that often because they're homeschooled.
Oh, that's awesome.
There's an amazing world of resources out there, and closer to you. Math is often the subject that parents and kids struggle with because math instruction inside the public schools is not the best. Mathnasium is one. Varsity Tutors is another. Kaplan teaches your kids how to take the test that they might not get a chance to learn because you have them at home and they're doing projects instead. There's just an incredible depth and breadth of resources. There are also online schools like Acellus Academy, ACELLUS, Bridges Academy, which is for twice exceptional kids online. And then you have schools that are running dual enrollment. I never thought I would give these people the time of day back in the 1980s, but when Dave Bratt left Congress, he was pulled in to be provost at Liberty University. He got the whole school and each of their programs regionally accredited. And then he started a K through 12 online academy, really aimed at kids who, let's say they were in a competitive sport or in dance or in theater, and they wanted to be able to get a good education. So they set up an online school with video lectures that you can do at your pace. Parents can monitor from a dashboard, and then they can meet with a tutor. They can schedule meetings with a tutor where they're having trouble completing their assignments and turning them in. And the other part of that is they run dual enrollment with Liberty University. So let's say you have a kid who has trouble taking tests, like an SAT or an ACT, because they need double time because of processing issues, like say my kid. He can take the classes he needs in the K through 12 academy and reach over and take classes at the university. And they've even set up to do clubs and chapel online. And he would only have to attend for his final year. Well, we're in multiple kinds of therapy multiple times a week that if we're driving hundreds of miles a week to get to everything for him and his sister. So you can see what option that opened up for us.
Yeah, no, that's amazing for especially just the saving of time.
Mm-hmm. And he needs profound quiet. So if he's like, I can't process this with other things going on in his room, he can go into his room and watch the course. We haven't hopped onto that option yet. I don't know if we will, but just having it there as an option is so much more than we had 10 years ago. So, and there are even academies that are accredited public school programs that work in partnership with the public schools. So let's say your daughter is able to get through the classwork so much more quickly, but can't because the bad fit with the teacher, the classroom environment won't let her, name it. You can go and enroll in one of these K through 12 programs that are linked with your state's public schools, and she can move through them at her own pace.
Yeah, that is awesome. And there's already some of that in the modern schools with the online teaching sides of things, where students are playing learning games and things like that as part of their coursework. And so the kids that are excelling separately from the classroom, and the kids that need more help are getting the more help they need. So it goes both ways, but that is really the magic of the information age. And this, as you said, works very well for kids that have special needs. And let's be honest, all kids have special needs. And,
yes.
But also goes well for, I talked about in a previous segment on how Massachusetts has gotten rid of standardized testing, which I think will allow some of the underprivileged school districts to kind of fall through the cracks without any state oversight. And one option for fighting back with that is you can see if you can do it on your own.
Well, and one thing to know about is there is the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. They're militant about homeschooling, which I love. Mm-hmm. If you join them, if you run into any legal trouble with your school district and you can document how you've been educating your kids, they will defend you in court for free.
Oh, that's awesome.
And the second side of that is that they have a foundation, so that if you have trouble affording the ability to homeschool, if you're a member, right? Even if you're not a member for the foundation, you can apply to the foundation for a grant.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, there are not a lot of people doing this. It's not thickly resourced, but it's a lot better than nothing. And a lot of churches, I think that you'll find a return to that church as community center. Mm-hmm. A lot of homeschool groups I know of meet through different churches. And parents organize together. I know of another group made up mostly of kids with classified as having special needs in the public school context, who were absolutely failed by the public schools. And this is in Appalachia, in rural Virginia. Mm-hmm. And they said, we can't afford all the expensive therapies, and we can't afford all the tutors, so we're co-oping and we're figuring out how to do for our kids together. And that's amazing. And there are great resources. Oh, also, there is an outfit called the Calvert Schools, and they were sort of the original correspondence school. And you can mail into them every year and sort of make your child an attendee of the school, and they will send you a correspondence curriculum. There are so many approaches to this. And for free, you have Khan Academy online. For small fees, you have Brilliant. And you have so many resources over the internet, on YouTube, on Curiosity Stream. Your local library has resources. The hard part is you have to really like your kid, and your kid really has to like you to make this work. But you can you have an opportunity to show your children that life itself is a learning lab, not just when you're seated at your desk in a classroom, but there's something to learn everywhere you go, and that's a lot of what makes life fun.
Yeah, again, I've said it before. I'm going to say it as often as I can. We need to foster curiosity in our children. Don't just learn because there's a test involved, or don't just learn because somebody told you to. Learn because there's a question that you want an answer to. And I just think about all the stuff that I know that I have no formal schooling in whatsoever. I mean, I've had virtually no formal schooling in firearms. I have no formal schooling in lock picking, and we found a bike lock that was locked to a bike in our garage that we've lost the key for, and I was able to get it off without damaging it. So if we find the key, it'll work again. And I'm essentially a professional cook now, and I've had no culinary experience whatsoever. But the internet abounds.
Yeah. You bang out however many covers a day it is for your family. You become a professional through experience.
Mm-hmm. No, it is absolutely true. And I will make sure to have, you just listed off a huge number of resources. And so I will make sure that all of them get a link in the show notes. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, that's interesting and all that, make sure to check out the show. You should check out the show notes every week, but make sure you check out the show notes for this episode, because there's a lot of good stuff here.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Connie. I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Weer'd. Glad to be here.
Yeah, this is super useful if you have special needs kids like Connie, but it's also great if either you have like a terrible school district. There's a bunch of those that just really aren't set up, don't do the right job, having staffing issues, whatever. But also, like, actually, I was thinking about Larry Correa credits his rural school district as one of the reasons why he's an author, because he spent like 2 hours on the bus every morning and every evening, just going from one section to other. And I've got relatives up in farm country of Maine, and yeah, they sometimes have really, really long school bus rides because the district is like miles and miles and miles across. And so, yeah, if you go like, oh, my kid's spending like, 2 to 4 hours on a school bus every day, you could teach them at home and they could get that time back.
I'm just thinking of all those band road trips, and, 2 hours on a bus is pretty miserable. But to do it twice a day, 5 days a week for however many weeks are in a school year, oh my God. Yeah. I would go nuts.
As Larry said in the blog post, he said, I read every book in my library, literally. Like, track down every last one. Just like, yep, nope, I'm just going to read all the books all the time.
I mean, that's great up until the motion of the bus starts giving you headaches, like it used to do to me.
Or it makes the food come up like it used to do to me. Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. Either way, we're making a point for homeschooling.
Oh, absolutely. And out of all of the awful things that came as a result of COVID, what with, the remote classes and the Zoom and things like that, I'm actually surprised we haven't seen more of a resurgence of homeschool. Just like I'm surprised we haven't seen a resurgence of more work from home. But that's at least, a few positive things that came out of lockdown. The realization that, hey, you don't have to be in physical school to learn. And that's great.
Well, I will say I know for a fact that there are a lot more work from home jobs than there were. I mean, a ton of companies just simply ended the lease on their office spaces during COVID. And so when the lockdowns ended, nope, we're still just going to do this. And I mean, I know for a fact that my wife now works from home a lot more than she used to, because they've now have the infrastructure where she can call into meetings and things like that. It used to be like she was literally like making a phone call, and they would have like a speaker phone in the middle of the desk for days where she was, had like a doctor's appointment in the middle of the day or something. So she's just like, it's not worth me going into work just to leave and all that. So she would just, stay home and work on her computer and just call into a couple of meetings. But now they just have the Zoom meeting. And so now it's just one of those some people are in person. Some people are in person. Some people are on their computers at home. And so you've got that. And I've got to imagine that there probably is also a much, much more people being homeschooled now than there were before the lockdown. But I suspect that as a general rule, I find that government is fairly hostile to homeschoolers as a general rule. So I think that they wouldn't want to necessarily draw a lot of attention to that.
Well, government is hostile to anything that doesn't depend upon government.
Yes. But Aaron, do you know who's not dependent on the government?
I mean, I know where you're going with this. I don't know if that's an accurate statement, and I don't feel comfortable attributing that to our listeners because, some of them might be on disability.
That's true. That is true. Can we call them wonderful?
We absolutely can call them wonderful.
Can we call them alarmingly good looking?
I mean, that's a supposition, but I'm willing to be charitable for our listeners who have demonstrated the good taste in listening to us.
Yes, and I will just say I'm a happily married man. I don't mean anything weird about it. I'm just making note of what I'm seeing, looking at a microphone. But thanks to each and every one of you, our lovely listeners, and a very special thanks to all of our supporters on Patreon. To become a Patreon patron, go to patreon.com/Assorted Calibers podcast to sign up. Patrons get an early release of the podcast, plus bonus content like our hilarious blooper reels, the ACP film tracks, and the ACP mag dump.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts and Pocket Casts, subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
And make sure to vote for us on the Gundie Awards if you're so inclined. And you can get more from me at my blog, which is weerdworld.com. That's weerdworld.com. And hear me weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network.
And you can get more from me at linktree/Aaron Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Aaron Paulette, all one word.
And thanks to Nate Spencer for our music.
So I've been nominated for a Gundie, and our podcast has been nominated for a Gundie, but Weer'd still hasn't been nominated for a Gundie. Always a bridesmaid, never a bride. Our Gundie nomination status is assorted, and so's our podcast. Good night, everyone.
I get some lovely dresses out of it.